Today, I'm going to share one of my favorite mental hacks, and I absolutely love this because it totally changed my outlook on negative things that happen, on self-doubt. And it's something that I find myself using now every day because I first learned about it years ago. But now with AI, I'm able to totally accelerate my thinking and have it be top of mind and implement it more. This can help you too because it's something we all struggle with. And if you don't, then you're either enlightened or maybe just not paying attention to it. But tell me if this sounds familiar. It's that voice in your head, and it sounds something like, you're falling behind, or you should be farther along by now, or why did you say that? They think you're an idiot. You totally blew it. They're all going to figure it out one day. Look at them. They're successful, they're confident, and look at you. And why does it just say the most degrading and awful things? And would you pause and you think about it, you might even be embarrassed to say it out loud. So you're like, why would I talk to myself that way? Why would I treat myself that way? But the interesting part and the important part to realize is that that voice isn't you. That's your inner critic. Your inner critic is the one that says, hey, look at so and so. Look at Becky John. Look at Joe Mo. Look at what they're doing. And then look at you. Or look at where you should be and look at where you are. So today we're going to talk about the inner critic, why it happens, and then how you can use AI to help quiet it. The goal isn't to always use AI, but to use AI as a coach and as a thought partner so that you can start thinking in this way. You can start thinking in systems and be able to silence the inner critic on your own eventually. But basically, the inner critic happens because I think of it as a fundamental problem with the human mind, like a bug in the software. And back when we were running from all sorts of animals and living in much more peril environments than we do now, our minds were always looking for ways to protect us. So, as a species, our minds are wired to pick up on danger and to flag it for us. So, let that sink in. The reason that we fixate on negative things, that's actually our brain trying to protect us. It's not trying to hurt us, and it doesn't realize that it's doing damage by raising awareness of those things. Marcus Aurelius said this: how often do we dwell on the positive? And I love that because when you think about it, how often do I actually stop and focus on the beauty in life and the positive? Why is it that I just fixate on the negative? But it's natural because that's your brain's way of saying, hey, I want to help keep you alive. And if we're off looking at flowers, we might not see the big, huge bear chasing us. But I want to give you something today that will help shift how your mind operates and help that inner critic be more reasonable. The good thing is that it isn't you, but the bad thing is that it can feel like you. If you've heard don't believe everything you think, that is 100% applicable here. And one of the biggest things with the inner critic is just to recognize it. So you're not taking it as fact. You can say, oh, that's a thought that I'm having. Mo Gadot, the former executive at Google, says he thinks about his thoughts passing by like clouds. I love that because then you start seeing your inner critic. He calls his inner critic Becky. I find it really helpful to think of it as something separate from you. His equation is beautiful in its simplicity. He says that happiness equals your perception of events minus your expectations. The inner critic corrupts both of those variables. It distorts perception, so it makes minor mistakes seem totally catastrophic. You ask a question and feel stupid after it, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so embarrassing. Everybody's thinking I'm dumb. And it also inflates expectations, demanding perfection in a completely imperfect universe. Mo asks two questions that cut through the noise. One, is this true? And two, is it helpful? Can you verify that? No. Does believing it improve your performance? No. So we're running a program that fails both tests. But now I want to get tactical too. This inner critic, if you think about your life as having a board of directors almost, and right now you only have one, what if we could change that? What if we could actually have multiple perspectives that could help silence that inner critic? And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to help build a board of directors for our mind to help us when we have these thoughts, to help us think through them logically and to quickly silence it using AI. So I'm going to share the 3 board members that I like to use. The first one is what I call the realist. The realist operates in the domain of verifiable facts, just data, no interpretation, no emotion. So when your inner critic says, everyone thinks you're an idiot, the realist would respond, 3 people were in that meeting, 1 nodded, 1 asked a follow-up question, 1 was checking their phone. We have no data on their thoughts. This is powerful because the real strips away the narrative and reveals reality. A lot of times what we feel is intuition is not, and it's us in our own mind. It's that inner critic turning the story against us. In reality, it's usually far less dramatic than the story we tell ourselves. So the operating principle of the realist is, what do we actually know to be true? The second board member that I have given myself is the sage. The sage operates on a different time scale. They see patterns across years, decades, lifetimes. So when your inner critic screams, this mistake will ruin everything, the sage is going to calmly observe and say, hey, in 5 years, you won't remember this. In 1 year, it might become the story of critical learning. The sage reminds us that most emergencies actually aren't, and most catastrophes actually aren't. And now the third board member, I like this one a lot. It's the strategist. The strategist is pure action orientation. They don't have time for self-pity. Every situation is chess position. So what's the most optimal move here? So when the critic says, you're so far behind, the strategist would analyze and say, interesting thought. 3 possible strategies. We could accelerate our timeline and change the game that we're playing. Or maybe we redefine what winning means. Where do you think this thought is coming from? And what would serve our long-term objectives? It's going to transform emotional problems into strategic decisions. Sometimes that inner critic might be trying to tell us something. Is it a part of ourselves or the future or the world that we fear, or that we haven't accepted yet, or that we want to take action on, but we haven't figured out how? And we haven't even had that thought consciously come to mind yet. And their operating principle for the strategist is, okay, given this thought, what could it mean and what's our best move here? Because the critic paralyzes through judgment. It isn't helpful. It's not saying, oh, if you just make a few changes, you can get exactly where you want to be. Or would you look at everything you've already done this past year? Look, 5 years ago, you would have killed to be where you are now. No, no, no. It's going to say, you, that's it. So the strategist mobilizes through action. And then I'll talk about why this specific configuration works for me. The realist handles the present, what's actually happening right now. The sage handles perspective. The strategist handles the future, what we do next. Together, they give complete coverage. It's like a distributed computing system for your mind. And that critic can't dominate when these voices are also active. So it becomes one thought of many, one voice of many. The neural pathways are occupied with more useful processes. But here's the key insight. None of them are trying to make you feel better. They're not cheerleaders. The realist might deliver uncomfortable news. The sage might reveal how much you still have to learn, and the strategist might show you that you have a lot of work ahead. But that's exactly why they work. They give you something more powerful than comfort. They give you clarity, perspective, and agency. And a lot of times, that's what we need. Because again, that negative thought, that critic, it doesn't want to help us. It wants to hold us back and keep us exactly where we are and make us feel horrible about it. Let me walk you through the protocol in real time. Imagine this scenario. You just completely fumbled a presentation. Your inner critic immediately activates and it says, "You're incompetent. Everyone saw you fail. Your reputation destroyed. Why did you even try?" And then you remember to convene the board. The realist would say, "You stumbled over 3 slides. You got 2 questions you couldn't answer." The sage would say, "Every speaker has had this experience. It's part of developing competence. In a month, this will be a minor memory. In a year, it might be the presentation that taught you to over-prepare." No one becomes skilled without these moments. The strategist would say, "Okay, we have 3 options. Send a follow-up email with the information we missed, let it go, and better prepare for next time, or mention it to your manager and let them know that you are aware of what you could have done better and that you're working on it. What do you think is going to best serve our goals?" You're the CEO of your mind and your thoughts, as Mo likes to put it. You might say, "Okay, thank you, realist. I appreciate that accurate assessment that it actually was only 5 minutes of the whole presentation. So it wasn't as bad as I'm making it out to be." And then the sage, "You're right about the learning curve. And actually, when I think about it, if I look at where I was even a month ago, I'm a lot better since then." And then the strategist, you're like, "Yeah, I guess I could just answer the questions after the meeting." So if you notice, the inner critic is still there and it's still generating noise, most likely. But now it's just one voice among 4. And the other 3 are significantly more useful. So here's your implementation protocol: simple, repeatable, effective. So I'm going to give you the exact prompt to use with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your favorite AI chatbot is. And you can write this down. I'll put it in the description and you can just copy this anytime you need it. So whenever that inner critic kicks in, you'll have this copied and you just paste it into ChatGPT. All right, so here's the prompt. Your goal is to help me overcome my inner critic. I'll share a situation that happened and what my inner critic is saying about it. I need you to be my 3-person board of directors. You will respond as 3 distinct advisors. 1, the realist, who states only facts without interpretation or emotion. 2, the sage, who provides perspective and wisdom about what this means in the bigger picture. And 3, the strategist, who focuses only on options and next actions. Here's my situation. And then you describe what happened. My inner critic is saying, and then you share the negative self-talk. Please have each board member respond to this situation in 3 sentences max. The realist should go first, then the sage, then the strategist. Keep each voice distinct and focused on their role. Next time you find that you're comparing yourself, that you are talking down to yourself in a moment, you've accomplished something, and that voice in your head says, "You just got lucky," or "You didn't deserve it," or "If they knew the real you, they wouldn't have hired you." Take 30 seconds, copy that prompt, and put it into ChatGPT, and just see what happens. And if you don't like it, then you never have to use it again. But if you do like it, and it can be a go-to for you when that inner critic does fire in your brain, then maybe, like me, it can be a way that you start to silence it. And now I feel like I'm getting better at not just noticing my inner critic, but like Mo said, thinking about it as a thought that I'm just watching go by, because I am able to separate myself from it. I've built the habit of having other perspectives lined up to quickly shift to. And I find myself shifting to that strategist and to that realist in my mind now without always having to use AI. Now, sometimes if it's something that's really stuck in my head, I'll do a brain dump and I still use it. People worry about AI atrophying critical thinking skills. But if you use it effectively, from my personal experience, this has helped me sharpen my mindset. Give it a try. I hope it works for you. Your inner critic only has power because it's been the sole voice in the room and unopposed for so long, and you mistake its opinion for truth. But the moment that you install these 3 advisors for your board, I hope that dynamic shifts for you as it's done for me. Not because they're more positive, they actually might not be, but because they're more useful. So ground yourself in reality, connect yourself with what matters, and move toward what you want. Together, they can transform that inner dialogue from self torture to self leadership. Next time that inner critic speaks up, recognize it and paste that prompt into ChatGPT, give it a try, and see if this works for you. I'd like to leave us with a quote today that I found to be particularly applicable to the inner critic. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. John Milton.